A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Thanks so much for tuning in to another edition of Bearing Arms, Cam and Company. My name is Cam Edwards. Great to have you with us today. Cannot believe it's only Thursday. I can't believe it's only June. I have no idea what 2020 is going to bring us in the next couple of weeks. Did you think for a second that 2 weeks ago we would be talking about defund police or abolishing police departments? I did not have that on my 2020 bingo card. And now not only are we talking about abolishing police departments, but we're talking about abolishing cop shows on TV. Maybe even police movies, right? We've seen this already just in the past 24 hours or so. A&E canceling Live PD, which was its most popular program, by the way. It's not like this is, canceling some low-rated show. They are canceling the network's top-rated program. In a statement to Deadline Hollywood, the network said, quote, "This is a critical time in our nation's history, and we have made the decision to cease production on Live PD. Going forward, we will determine if there is a clear pathway to tell the stories of both the community and the police officers whose role it is to serve them. And with that, we will be meeting with community and civil rights leaders as well as police departments." This came a day after Paramount Network pulled the plug on the long-running Cops TV show. Dan Abrams, who is the host of Live PD, went to Twitter on Wednesday evening and said to all of you asking whether Live PD is coming back, the answer is yes. Said all of us associated with the show are as committed to it as ever. We are still discussing some specifics, but I want to assure the Live PD Nation that we are not abandoning you. Well, it may be that Dan Abrams wants to bring Live PD back somewhere, but now the question is, where would it air? What network would actually, take on Live PD after A&E has wokely decided to cancel the program? Sat down and talked with my friend Christian Toto from Hollywood and Toto, longtime film critic and observer of all things going on in Hollywood, to get his take on the repression, the cultural and creative repression that we're now seeing in supposedly anything goes Hollywood. And what this might mean for the future of programs like Live PD or maybe even a Cop Rock reboot. Take a look and a listen. Christian, thank you so much, sir, for coming to the program. It's great talking to you today.
Good to be here. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. There is so much going on right now. I mean, the world just seems like it is spinning off its axis. And in Hollywood, we're now seeing some really bizarre developments. So A&E cancels their most popular show yesterday, Live PD. And I guess, Christian, it's because what? Because of the generally positive portrayals of law enforcement who are out there and we get to watch them as they're, on duty and patrolling the streets. This is now something that Americans shouldn't be watching.
It's amazing and how this basically someone like threw a switch and all of a sudden culturally we had to make all these changes. And just for context, another show is under fire, Paw Patrol, which is a kiddie show. Just go look at it. It's in the New York Times. And so that's under fire as well. Yeah. So any kind of positive portrayal of the police is now suspect and or problematic. And, I think one of the many things left out in this discussion is I'm pretty sure there are a lot of good minority cops of color who are, risking their lives, trying to help their neighbors, let alone the good white cops who are doing the same thing, obviously. But to kind of just say that all cops are suspect, all cops shouldn't be treated. I mean, it's an amazing conversation. And by amazing, I mean frightening. Let's have cop reform. Let's hold the people who did what they did to George Floyd accountable. All for that. I think as a culture, we were united on the fact that what happened was a tremendous wrong. George Floyd should not be dead. It's a horrible situation. For once, we all came together, and then they split us all apart.
Absolutely. And as you say, I mean, like on a dime, Hollywood seems to have turned. Last week, we weren't talking about this. Last week, I'm sure that A&E was having discussions about, okay, when can we get back to live programming? When can we start showing this? Now Live PD is canceled. And I'm assuming, it didn't seem like there was a lot of public pressure applied on A&E to do this. This wasn't some sort of, big campaign. This was something that the network decided to do, apparently of their own volition, to get out in front of this.
Yeah, Hollywood is really based on fear. And I think that's never been more true than right now. You don't need a campaign. You don't even need a hashtag movement. You just need the fact that, oh my gosh, it's about cops. It may portray cops in a positive light from time to time. That can't be. The new normal is cop equals bad. And that's it. And, it doesn't even matter if the show is well rated. Listen, HBO Max just temporarily pulled the most popular movie of all time. If you look at the revenue for Gone with the Wind adjusted for inflation, it's the biggest movie ever. It's beloved. Generations adore it. I don't think generations adore it because it doesn't have the right view on slavery and race relations. They enjoy the love story, the drama, the emotions, the cinematic aspect of it. But it gets pushed aside. So if the most popular movie can go and other major popular pop culture events can go, anything can go. And I wish that was hyperbole. I don't think it is.
I don't think it is either. But I'm wondering, so is there a space, Christian, I've got 500 channels on my, satellite at home. We've got streaming services. One would think that this would open up our ability to access more programming, but instead it seems like things are being stifled. Is there a space? Is there a network where you think a show like Live PD could land? If NBC starts pulling off all of its Law and Orders and the NICS shows get canceled, is there a place where this type of programming, which clearly has an audience, is there a place where it can be seen, where there are companies that are going to take that risk and say, all right, well, we know that it's not popular with Hollywood, but it's popular with the American people, so we're going to run Live PD?
I think the fear and cowardice is across the board. Remember when the Tim Allen show, Last Man Standing, got pulled from ABC? Fox swooped in, picked it up, and it's been a steady performer. But that's a different time, even though that was 2 years ago. Right now, I can't imagine any network, big, small, or medium, saying, yeah, let's go with Live PD. I just don't see it. The fear is across the board. You can't say what you want to say. You can't criticize certain groups. I mean, the fact that we're here right now discussing this, it staggers me. And I don't even know what to say. And I will say one thing. Where is Hollywood? Where is Steven Spielberg saying, sure, Gone with the Wind doesn't have a modern look at slavery. It isn't as woke as it should be. It's a product of its time. But by golly, it's art. It's great art. It's beloved art. It should be out there. Why aren't the Spielbergs speaking up? Doesn't he have enough money to say, the heck with you if you cancel him? I think he does. I hope he does. But I think the only one right now is really standing up. I could say Adam Carolla and J.K. Rowling. They're the only two people saying, hey, cancel culture, I'm not going to listen to you. We need more people like that.
We absolutely do. And I got to tell you, for those who know their history, and I know you certainly know this as well, to see Hollywood in particular go from, speaking out against blacklists in the 1950s to now developing a blacklist of their own. And to, my first exposure to the First Amendment was the Parents Music Resource Center hearings on Capitol Hill back in the 1980s, where you had, guys like John Denver who were testifying in support of guys like Blackie Lawless of Wasp being able to, put explicit lyrics in their music.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine that John Denver, went at home and listened to a lot of like Twisted Sister albums, but he and Dee Snider were on the same page when it came to artistic freedom and artistic expression and the First Amendment. And now I don't recognize that Hollywood, because now I see Hollywood that's more interested in scolding people for what they say. If there is a different point of view, even a point of view that is as uncontroversial as not every cop is bad, all of a sudden that viewpoint must be silenced by Hollywood.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. I mean, they should be on the front lines of this debate. One of the things I've done with my work is that I've embraced Ricky Gervais. Ricky Gervais I think he hates Trump. He's not a conservative. He's a liberal guy. But I will wholeheartedly support him because Ricky Gervais is a warrior for free speech and free expression. And to me, at this point in our culture, in many ways, that trumps ideology. And there are other comedians. John Cleese has been very strong in this issue. Rob Schneider as well. It's a pretty small group. And again, it's fear. If you come out and you say something and it's not perfect, you will be attacked. Listen, J.K. Rowling right now, you've got mainstream media outlets rushing to her corporate sponsors, the companies she works with, and saying, well, what do you think about that? Which is implying, do you want to cut off your ties with J.K. Rowling? Now, Warner Brothers, who is in the Harry Potter business, put out this vague word salad, basically saying, we make a lot of money off of J.K. Rowling. We don't want to back down. But also they wouldn't support her, and also they just wouldn't take a stand. So even the most powerful people are kind of on the edge right now.
Absolutely. And again, I mean, the insanity every day, there's another story, whether it's, as you say, Paw Patrol, or even the classic Looney Tunes, Christian. They're reinventing the Looney Tunes, and they're disarming Yosemite Sam and Elmer Fudd. Well, not disarming. Elmer Fudd, I guess, has a scythe in at least one of the cartoons that he's chasing Bugs Bunny with. So far better than a shotgun, I suppose. I mean, this is, where does this end? And, do you think about this, like what the entertainment industry is going to look like a year from now? Mm-hmm. In terms of the repression that we're seeing in this industry?
In many ways, I think movies have been faltering. I think that they often, from a storytelling point of view, pale compared to TV. The movies get the blockbusters right, the Black Widows, the Wonder Woman, those are all fun and exciting. But I think we're seeing a real kind of creative renaissance on TV. I think this is going to curb that. I think if you've got storytellers who need to share certain messages, who can't go in certain tough directions, who can't ask probing questions about the culture, I think all of those things sort of dampen the artistic spirit. And I think that is you're going to see that happening across screens. I think so. How could it not? If I was a creator in Hollywood right now, I would be terrified of going to my laptop, opening up a Word document and starting to write a script. What could you say? It's like there's only certain narratives you play into. And if you do that, they're probably dull. I mean, we don't want to be lectured to, but that's going to get double or triple timed, I think, at this point.
Absolutely. And it's so odd to me to think back to some of the conversations that you and I have had over the years about, Hollywood proclaiming that, listen, the violence in our movies, that doesn't inspire violence in real life. The, violent and explicit song lyrics, they have no bearing on what happens in the real world. Leave us alone. We need to pass gun control laws. We don't need to talk about, cleaning up our act in Hollywood. And here, when it comes to police, all of a sudden Hollywood says, what we do, it does matter. It does have an impact. It does have an impression on the general public. I'm wondering, Christian, can they avoid? I mean, to me, that seems like a real double standard here. So if all of a sudden now, police procedurals and reality shows with law enforcement, if these are now bad and harmful to our culture, well, then does that reopen the conversation about violence in movies and TV shows and video games more generally?
Well, Hollywood embraces hypocrisy and double standards and doesn't address them. And the media lets them get by. You and I will talk about it. Some other conservative outlets will talk about it, but they will not be held accountable. So we can't see Elmer Fudd with a shotgun, but we can see John Wick blow away 300 people in a movie. I don't kind of get it. Listen, I get it in that this is a fantasy film. It's not reality. We go into it knowing certain things. But I don't think as a creator you can say, well, Elmer Fudd with a gun is bad, but John Wick blowing away all his people is fine. I don't know how you make that connection. I just don't.
Yeah, I don't either. But as you say, it's not logic. It's not consistency. It's just Hollywood. Christian, where can folks find you? Because you do fantastic work.
Well, thanks. My website is HollywoodInToto, TOTO.com. On Twitter, it's at HollywoodInToto. Got to keep the brand consistent. And also, I've been running a lot for the Daily Wire as well. So if you find me at my site, you could also find my stuff there as well.
Fantastic. Christian, great talking with you again today, sir. Thank you so much for your time, and hope we get a chance to do this again soon.
I'd love to.
I mean, it really is amazing to think about this. I going back to the Parents Music Resource Center, when I was a kid growing up, this was the height of the satanic panic, right? And, parents, don't let your kids play Dungeons and Dragons, and don't let them listen to Judas Priest, and oh my God, throw the Ozzy Osbourne albums out the window. And again, Hollywood said, no. We've got the right, we've got the freedom to express ourselves in this way. And so even if we don't agree with, Judas Priest writing a song called Suicide Solution, no, we don't think that song should be banned. No, we don't think that there should be any sort of punishment within the industry for a band like Judas Priest. Even when, early 1990s, when Bleep the Police was released, and Charlton Heston went to a Warner Brothers shareholder meeting and complained about, Cop Killer and Ice-T's Body Count and the language that was used, again, in a song called Cop Killer. Hollywood's response, by and large, was, listen, this is the First Amendment. This is freedom of speech. You don't have to agree with what is being said, but we're not going to silence viewpoints just because they happen to be unpopular. Now, Hollywood is saying, you know what, we're going to silence viewpoints because they're popular. We're going to silence these viewpoints because we in Hollywood are either, again, terrified of the mob, or we are hoping to, increase our woke bona fides. But for whatever reason, we are now going to take the position that, again, shows that highlight what police officers do on a daily basis are bad and should not be seen because they might give people the false impression that not all cops are bad. I mean, this is just, we're through the looking glass here. I'm such a fan of history, and I've been, going back through and rereading up on some of the tumultuous times that we've had in our nation. And honestly, I mean, this isn't like the 1930s during the grips of the Great Depression, where radicalism, really erupted in many parts of the country, where there were riots in Minneapolis, as a matter of fact, over labor, not over police brutality. This isn't the 1960s, which had obviously a lot of protests, a lot of civil unrest, but again, an ethos of let your freak flag fly, right? Now you've got the protests, and not just about police brutality, but again, the protests surrounding just the United States as it is, coupled with, again, this cultural repression, and this repression that if you don't conform to the worldview put forth by Hollywood, put forth by activists, by Democrat politicians, that you deserve to be canceled. You deserve to lose your job. You deserve to lose your livelihood. You deserve whatever ill might befall you. I'm not sure, again, that we've ever really been in a situation like this before. And I don't know how much of a guide history is going to be to let us know how to get out of this moment. All right, let's get to today's armed citizen story, our good deed of the day, our recidivist report. We will start there. Story out of St. Louis, where the one of these suspects in the killing of retired police officer David Dorn, you see the headline there, one sentenced to 7 years behind bars, but actually served no time at all. This is from KTVI in St. Louis. 24-year-old Stephen Cannon was convicted in 2004 for felony robbery. Not 2004, 2014, 6 years ago. Sentenced to, pled guilty to felony robbery, sentenced to 7 years. Judge gave him a break. He got probation under what's called a suspended execution of sentence. And even though Cannon twice violated his probation, he never went to jail for that crime. Now he faces a first-degree murder charge in the killing of retired St. Louis Police Captain David Dorn, who was protecting a pawn shop from being looted. According to KTVI, they say that, this case, we don't have a lot of explanation about why the judge decided to sentence a Cannon to this suspended execution of sentence, nor do we know, again, why the system did not punish Cannon when he violated the terms of his probation, why he was not sent to prison under this probation that was granted to him. But, again, when we talk about criminal justice reform, and we are now, clearly, we're not just talking about policing reform, but we're talking about criminal justice reform as well. This is one of the things we absolutely have to talk about. And I know the media doesn't want to talk about it. And I know that the typical criminal justice reform advocates might not want to talk about it, but we need to talk about this. 97% of felony cases in this country end up in plea bargains. So they end up in reduced sentences compared to the original charges. I mean, that's basically a guarantee. But when you have violent criminals who are convicted or plead guilty to violent crimes, and they walk away not only with no punishment, which is what happens when they get a probationary sentence, but when they learn that they can violate even those probationary terms without any consequences, what do you think happens? Does that make someone more or less inclined to believe that they can get away with committing additional crimes? I mean, I think it's pretty clear that it makes people believe that, hey, I'm untouchable. Even when I get arrested, even when I get busted, nothing's gonna happen. And so as we, again, talk about ways to reform the criminal justice system, I think we need to talk about consequences for those criminals who actually are convicted of their crimes, do plead guilty to their crimes. We need to ensure that they don't simply walk away with a finger wagging and a stern talking to. And that when they violate the terms of their probation and the judge has told them, listen, if you don't stay on the straight and narrow, we're going to put you behind bars. And they violate their probation and they stay on the streets. They don't go to behind bars. There are no consequences for their actions. We need to talk about the consequences for all of us when that is the norm in the criminal justice system. Now, moving on to our armed citizen story of the day, a story we covered at bearingarms.com a little bit earlier on Thursday. Man in Houston, Texas, decided it would be a bright idea to kick down the door of his ex-girlfriend's apartment in Southeast Houston and was shot for his trouble by the ex's new boyfriend who was inside when police arrived to the apartment in Southeast Houston just before 1 a.m. on Wednesday morning. They found the suspect there with multiple gunshot wounds. He was taken to a local hospital. He is expected to survive. The current boyfriend was interviewed, not expected to face any charges. And as we noted, this is actually the second case in 2 weeks in the Houston area where something like this has occurred. Back on May 31st, there was another ex who broke into his ex-girlfriend's home. Apparently a party had been held. He wandered into the bedroom where he found his ex-girlfriend and her current boyfriend. He pulled a gun. The current boyfriend pulled a gun as well, fired shots, striking and killing the ex-boyfriend who had intruded into that home. So this is, we're starting to see a trend here, and it's listen, my preference would be that these exes stay away and don't try to break into anybody's homes. But if they are going to do this, if they are going to, violate orders of protection or try to do harm to their ex, I want to see an armed response. And we have seen that again in 2 cases in the Houston, Texas area over the past couple of weeks. My advice again, your girl leaves you, deal with it, suck it up, find a friend to talk to, don't kick in her front door. Bad things will happen to you, certainly, and there will possibly be even fatal consequences if you make a mistake like that. Now, finally, our good deed of the day from Buffalo, New York, Erie County, where an Erie County deputy off-duty saved the life of a motorcycle rider who was involved in a crash. This from Channel 7 WKBW. Chris Imhoff is the deputy in question. He was on his way home after his shift on Monday. He says, I saw somebody waving, and then I saw an overturned motorcycle. I saw the victim crawling around the road. That victim, a man named Javier Luis from Lackawanna, New York, Deputy Imhoff says he pulled over, jumped the median, started giving first aid. Shortly thereafter, a lieutenant with the Buffalo Police arrived, asked for a belt from a bystander to use as a makeshift tourniquet to put on Luis's leg. Deputy Imhoff was able to apply that makeshift tourniquet, put pressure on. He said Luis's leg was broken in multiple places. Deputy Imhoff in the right place at the right time, and a former combat medic, so had the skills needed to actually help this motorcycle victim. He said all the training came back. He said, I've been out of the Army for 5 years, but I was a combat medic when I was in, and it's crazy just how the training came right back, and I just went to work. Even better news, the guy who was driving that motorcycle, Javier Luis, spent 4 hours in surgery on Monday, but he is recovering. He is expected to be okay. Again, in large part because Deputy Chris Imhoff was in the right place at the right time and willing and able to do the right thing. So we thank him for his good deed. That is going to do it for this edition of Bearing Arms Cam and Company. I want to thank you for being a part of the program as always. We'll be back tomorrow with another look at some of the latest news and information from all across this nation dealing with our right to keep and bear arms. But in the meantime, don't forget, you can subscribe to Town Hall Media on YouTube or Bearing Arms Cam and Company on Apple Podcasts. That way you never miss one of these programs. Visit the website, bearingarms.com, throughout the day for more Second Amendment news. And don't forget, you can become a VIP Gold subscriber to Town Hall Media or Bearing Arms. That way you get exclusive analysis, commentary, live chats, and more. We really do appreciate your support, and hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. We'll see you tomorrow. Until then, be safe, be well, be free. We'll talk to you soon here on another edition of Bearing Arms, Cam and Company.